This is a horror story. I'm Greg, and this is The Suicide Disease, an audio essay about trigeminal neuralgia. So, everyone's had a headache, but mine are a bit more. I was diagnosed with a nerve disorder known as trigeminal neuralgia, and if you have it, you know exactly why I'm making this. But if you don't, here's the gist. About 200,000 people currently have it, and it happens when the blood vessels underneath your ear move into your nerves. Very, very basic explanation, but it only has one symptom, and it's pain. I'm not talking about regular pain, I'm talking excruciating pain. Like, think of the worst brain freeze you've ever had, and then while you're having that brain freeze, someone is trying to pull your teeth out with a fork. It's so painful that people who experience trigeminal neuralgia and go untreated more often than not kill themselves. In fact, so many people with trigeminal neuralgia have killed themselves that it's been nicknamed the suicide disease. And I live with it. The first time I experienced trigeminal neuralgia was in between a chemistry class and a writing class I was taking in college. And I went to take a sip from the water fountain. And as soon as the water touched the inside of my mouth, it was like I thought I was gonna die, like I was gonna have a seizure or an aneurysm or something like that. I immediately, I called my loved ones and I'm like, there is something wrong with me. I need to see a doctor. And we jumped through hoops, and eventually I went to the doctor, I told him all of my symptoms, and he said there was nothing wrong with me. So I go weeks upon weeks just slamming Advil and Tylenol and any over-the-counter painkillers, because in my mind they did something, even though they don't. I go back to school after seeing this doctor, and I decide that I want a second opinion. And for a while, I kind of confronted the notion of killing myself, because there was no way out. It's always with you, just preying on you almost, just waiting for you to do something that pisses it off. Be it drink water, or chew food the wrong way, or even smile just a little bit too hard, and suddenly you're frozen in pain beyond the wildest beliefs. And it would make you mad. It would make you want to stop it. I remember holding my face one time in a restaurant with my mom and my girlfriend, and my girlfriend was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." But I was in pain, and I wanted to stop, but it wouldn't stop. And then it hit me that my trigeminal neuralgia was causing me to lash out at people who only wanted to help me. And that just made me even more lonely. And I really thought about just ending it all. When you're alone and you've gotten rid of everyone that cares about you, and there's no one to sympathize with, and the only two things in the world are you and the worst pain you've ever felt. There's really no way out. And it stopped me from doing everything, I like reading comic books and watching sports on TV, but it made it impossible. I go to college for writing, and I couldn't even get my head off of the pillow in my bed, let alone get to my computer to write. And because of that, the second half of my spring semester was just totally ruined. Because every time I wanted to work, every time I wanted to escape, it just pulled me right back in. It told me that I wasn't going anywhere. And that is why they call it the suicide disease. Because it makes you get rid of everything. It consumes you. It's the only thing you think about when you're not on medication. And even when you are on medication, there are some times where all I think about is getting to the next dose, and I'm counting the hours and when I need to take it, because I know that if I don't take it, I'm not going to be myself, and not in a good way either. So I see that there's a doctor in Chicago, Illinois, who specializes in trigeminal neuralgia, and I decide he is the next one that I go to. So fly halfway across the country, get an MRI done, and I see this doctor, and after weeks upon weeks upon weeks of suffering, he finally gives it to me and tells me that I do in fact have trigeminal neuralgia, and the doctor in New Jersey was incorrect. He gave me an anticonvulsant, something that people with seizures take to stop their seizures, because in essence, that's what a trigeminal neuralgia attack is. It's, your face is kind of seizing up. And for the most part, they work. About 80% of the time, I'm fine. I'm living life normally, But that process, getting diagnosed and being in pretty much constant pain that no one else understands, that's rough. It's not the pain of trigeminal neuralgia that's the worst part. It's the isolation. It's feeling like you're alone. And whenever someone brings up another person with trigeminal neuralgia, it's always like, my stepmom's cousin goes to a dog park, and one of the owners of the dogs has trigeminal neuralgia. Stuff like that. It's really, really difficult. And so this is made for people like me. This is made for people suffering. This is made for the people who feel like they're alone. And I'm here to tell you that you're not alone. I get asked a lot of questions about trigeminal neuralgia. Some of the more common ones, I would say, include things like, what prompts trigeminal neuralgia? Because everyone has their own kind of tics, their own kind of triggers that bring it up. And I would say my biggest one is ice. Ice, or things that are incredibly cold. I don't know why, but whenever I drink like cold water or take a bite of ice cream, my whole side of my head just freezes up in pain. And then another question would be, what soothes the trigeminal neuralgia attacks once they happen? And while they never really go away. I think one of the most common ones for me would be chewing gum. Now, I know a lot of people with trigeminal neuralgia, the act of chewing gum actually brings on the attacks. But for me, chewing gum soothes it. Like the motion in my jaw kind of calms everything down. And like I said, everyone's different. Everyone has different triggers. I read that one guy, his was kissing. And so every day when he left for work, he would rub his mouth on his wife's mouth, if that makes any sense. I'm laughing at it, but it's really horrible. Could you imagine not being able to express something like love? Awful. But that's why they call it the suicide disease. I want to thank you all for listening, whether you had trigeminal neuralgia or you're just here to learn. And please feel free to put questions in the comments. I might do another round of this where I answer questions from people who've either had trigeminal neuralgia or are curious. But sincerely, it gets better. I'm Greg, and this is the story of the suicide disease.